And we're back. Despite its travails over the past few years, the Suzuki Samurai is still very much a presence in the 4x4 market. Here's Tony.
Let me get one thing straight. Dollar for dollar, there's nothing to match the fun content of the Suzuki Samurai. For a start, it has to be the cutest little 4x4 ever built. It may be crude, but nobody can deny its usefulness and its youth appeal. It looks like an oversized Tonka toy, and I had a real problem convincing my 2-year-old that he couldn't hop in it and take it for a spin. Our test Samurai was even more interesting because it was a convertible. Top down, it has to be one of the ultimate summer cruisers and seems almost destined to have surfboards or sailboards stowed in the back. Mind you, this is no quick flick of the wrist convertible like the Mazda Miata. When you've taken the top down on this little truck, you tend to hope it stays fine for at least a couple of weeks. I suppose I should have expected a 4x4 ragtop to fall short of perfect, and this one certainly does. The diminutive four-wheeler is powered by a 4-cylinder engine of just over 1300 cc and puts out a fairly wimpish 64 horsepower. Obviously, this is no barn burner in the acceleration stakes, and your 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time will be closer to 20 seconds than 10. The only gearbox available with this truck is a 5-speed manual. It may not have too much power to boast about, but there is some useful low-end torque. With four-wheel drive engaged, you can extract yourself from most sticky or slippery situations without too much difficulty. Obviously, with nothing mightier than 64 horses on tap, you can expect excellent fuel economy. Around town, Transport Canada says you'll get 8.5 litres per 100 kilometres, and on the highway, 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres can be aimed for. Driving the Samurai is quite a chore, especially when you come to steer it out of tight parking spots. Even Mike Tyson would be heading for his chiropractor after maneuvering the Samurai. The engine is as rough as anything I've ever tried out of Japan and feels nothing less than agricultural. Having said that, it does get the job done, and the young folks who buy these trucks are probably not that concerned about refinement. Seating is fine up front anyway, and much better than earlier Suzukis in this class. Rear seats are cramped to say the least, and you certainly wouldn't want to squeeze your elderly grandparents back there. Let's face it, this truck is a favorite of young singles and couples who probably have the back seat folded down most of the time anyway. For those who want to do a bit of camping, which might involve off-road excursions, the Samurai is an excellent choice. I've driven Samurais over some fairly rough terrain, including washed-out BC logging roads, and I can confirm that the little beast does hold up very well. It's no picnic for the passengers, especially those banished to the back seats, but it's a barrel of fun nonetheless. It is well built and has a creditable level of general quality and fit and finish. Instrumentation is good, and cockpit layout should please just about everybody. Where the Samurai really suffers is in comparison with Suzuki's newer Sidekick models. The Sidekick is much more refined, is more attractive and handles better, and only costs a little bit more than the Samurai's $10,000 or so. Suzuki ends up being its own worst enemy with this now outdated truck, and I expect the company will put all its efforts into Sidekick production before too long. One consolation is that there'll be a lot of inexpensive little 4x4s around for those who don't want to spend a bundle, but still need some off-road capability in their vehicle. It won't take you long to check out the market for 4x4s in this price bracket, because there simply aren't any to speak of. There is the Lada Niva from Russia, which has been sold in some parts of Canada, and you might want to move up market a bit and look at the Suzuki Sidekick or Chevy GMC Tracker. After that, you're digging deep for several $1,000s more to buy a Jeep. Ted, is it possible to have more fun for the money?
I don't think so. There are a couple of things I didn't like about the Samurai. It is wimpy. It has much too, well, wimpy is the word I want here. And I didn't like the fact that the engine is underpowered. It needs more power. And that top was a nightmare. I mean, that's the worst top I've ever encountered in the business. On the other hand, this thing is very, very good off-road. I've taken these things up in the bush, and they are excellent out in the bush. I mean, for $10,000, what do you want for the money, you know?
Well, I agree, and while I've got my complaints about this, and mainly they center around the heavy steering and the very, very rough engine, although it is a robust engine, and I've taken these things onto some pretty rough territory, and they do hold up very well. And I forgive them for the hard-to-get-off roof. I mean, this isn't a sports car. This is a Jeep kind of vehicle, an off-road vehicle. It's not going to be a one-hand over-the-top Miata kind of deal.
No, if I owned one of these things, which I don't think I would, but if I did, I would leave the top off. One thing we should point out is now that Suzuki have a completely enclosed roll cage now. you know, we both know why, because of the rollover problem they had. So that is a good thing, because a lot of people that own these cars will treat them like sports cars, even though they have no sports car
Well, that's right, and they shouldn't, you see, and I have every sympathy with Suzuki over those rollover test problems they had, or rather some consumer group had, because these vehicles are not designed to be driven like sports cars. They may feel like sports cars when they're tops down and so forth, but you cannot throw these things around like, even like small hatchbacks.
Yeah, one other thing I noticed about maybe just the model that we had, but this needed gauges. There was nothing there. There was a speedometer and some idiot lights, and that was about it. And I really could use some gauges. I believe you can get some sort of a package where you can get gauges added or something.
Well, I dare say, yeah. I don't know whether that's a big barrier to people buying this kind of vehicle. And I like the way things are laid out inside. I mean, there's a lot of bare sheet metal around the cockpit and so forth. But it's what it should be, really. And I think that most people who buy these have a lot of fun with them. They really do.
I also want to add that they may be good on off-road, but getting to the off-road is a bit of a nightmare with these things, because on a highway they are unstable and prone to crosswinds. And
you've got to be very patient if there's a long hill. There's no question about that. Okay, some of the things we didn't like about this vehicle: difficult top put up, quite tricky, but acceptable on this kind of truck. Engine was very rough, in my opinion, and unstable, a little unstable if you try and throw it around like a sports car. On the plus side, it's really practical, very, very practical. Clearance, lots of ground clearance for proper off-road work, and fun content immeasurable.